EU3D. We are a little bit late, so with no further ado, I would like to invite Professor Paweł Leidler, Dean of the Faculty of International Political Studies of Jagiellonian University, to welcome our group.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear distinguished professors, scholars, in the name of the authorities of the Faculty of International and Political Studies at the Jagiellonian University in Kraków, I would like to cordially welcome you all in our building, in a place where the Institute of European Studies also is located, which is one of the co-hosts of this very important conference, being part of an even more important project. The topic of the project refers to 3D, differentiation, dominance, democracy, all three important words in different contexts. I'd like briefly to focus on the first word, differentiation, as from the perspective of the Faculty of International and Political Studies, I also have a kind of a feeling that it completely fits into the character and identity of this faculty. We are a very interdisciplinary faculty of scholars representing various disciplines. Democracy is one of the topics, one of the areas that we are interested in, both in historical, contemporary, but also in kind of future perspective. Of course, European Union is one of the key regions, not only from the perspective of the fact that the university is in Poland, Poland is part of the EU, but also from the comparative perspective. We have Institute for European Studies, we have institutes representing other regions, so we are focusing either on domestic affairs of Europe and European Union, but also the foreign affairs, international relations, security studies, and many other issues. And a lot of fields of study that are at our faculty are also referring directly or indirectly to the issue of European Union. So I would like, by briefly referring to the character and identity of our faculty, I would like to welcome you all in Kraków. I guess for some of you it's not the first visit. For those for whom that is the first visit, definitely try to use, not during the panels, but in between time, to do some sightseeing. But coming to the topic of the project, I'm fully convinced that the idea of the project, that the initiative of the project, which is the effect of the work of consortium, is completely timely. We are all aware of it as scholars, but also as citizens who are part of this suprastate community of this very unique entity. And whenever there's an entity that is unique from political, from legal, also from social, and I believe also cultural perspective, it's always full of challenges. And I believe from the start of European community and later through the erection of European Union and till now, it has always been evolving. There are several questions being asked during that process on the state of democracy, on the operation of the institutions of European Union, but also on the relationship between European Union and member states and issues of sovereignty. And of course, democracy is in the very heart of that debate. So, congratulating you on, first of all, the idea of the project. And I would say, I know it's not over yet, but I can say that successfully completing that project, its whole realization during 4-year period, around 50 scholars from several universities that create that consortium. For me personally, but also as a dean of the faculty, it's the biggest treasure when scholars from my faculty, when scholars from the Jagiellonian University, from the unit of the faculty, are so very much substantially involved in discussing important affairs, in meeting during conferences, and in creating publications that can benefit for the future of the democracy within European Union. Today's conference that starts today and finishes tomorrow is a conference focusing on issues of the future. I guess that you had a lot of time that you spent together in different places discussing the brief historical perspective, the sources of several kinds of problems and challenges, and also how it is today. I'm sure you properly estimated the state of democracy and the different paths that are the possibilities of the future evolution of European Union. So today's conference is, I would say, the beginning of the end of that project, but I'm sure, knowing the involvement of Professor Zdzisław Mach, of Professor Magdalena Góra, and other members of the Institute of European Studies, that it's just an element of the process. Even if most of the research questions that you posed will be answered, it's still an evolving transformation of the European Union. So I'm looking forward for new projects. I'm looking forward for the future works of the consortium, because apart from these books, apart from these conferences, you have a very important element which we always value. It's the integration of the community over the same problems. And even if you represent different institutions and different disciplines, we can only benefit from various perspectives, because this is also an element of differentiation. And whenever there's differentiation or diversity, we can always value out of it. So I wish you a fruitful time, keeping my fingers crossed for the EU, definitely, for all of you as a consortium, and of course I'm looking forward for future projects. Congratulations and good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would like to invite Professor Zdzisław Mach, head of our Kraków team. Professor Mach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Magda. Thank you, Dean, for your remarks and for your words of welcome. That's really a great pleasure for me to welcome you all here in Kraków, in the university, to see again so many familiar faces, to welcome friends and colleagues to Kraków after what has been really a fascinating time of research project not entirely as envisaged because of the COVID, I would say, not really interruption because work was going on, but problems with meetings, with keeping in touch personally. But still, the great project, 4.5 years, that's quite some time. Maybe from the perspective of our younger colleagues, it's a longer perspective, a longer period seems like to me, but even for me, it's an important part of my research activities. There will be opportunity later to express gratitude and thanks to people who were in particular involved, but I would certainly like, first of all, to say that Professor Magdalena Góra was really the most important pillar of all these activities that are happening in Kraków, and she really was in charge of most of the things. So thank you, Magda, really wonderful job. As Dean Leidler said, that's the topic that we choose, or that Jan-Erik chose probably, long ago turned out to be particularly timely and relevant, and I would say as time goes by, I mean, more and more relevant. Differentiation, diversity, dominance, democracy. When the project began, there were enough issues to discuss related to difference and dominance and democracy. Since then, we seem to be having more and more things to talk about and think about. Also in this part of Europe, as we know, there were symptoms of it already then, but now with populist regimes, Hungary and Poland, the question of different approaches to democracy, different understanding of democracy, dominance, and especially the future of the European Union, how diverse it can be, how differentiated it can be, and still to still make sense, to still be integrated. The discussions of the future of Europe just started when we had a big conference, really, when we had when pandemics came, when we were affected by it. I remember already, like at that time when we were beginning the project, as it happened, there was a visit of Mrs. Jourova, the commissioner, here in Krakow. I had a very good conversation with her regarding how to organize this discussion of the future of Europe so that it involves as many institutions and citizens as possible, how to lead this debate on the future of Europe so that it is supported, it is legitimized, it is accepted, and as many people as possible, as many citizens as possible would feel involved and would feel that they can identify with the processes. Then there was not much chance to continue the discussion because of the pandemic, but obviously now is time, in a slightly different circumstances in Europe, to continue. So regarding the projects, I mean, you are familiar with the program. There's going to be a lot of wonderful panels and papers, extremely promising, which reflect what has been achieved. The massive material that some of it has already been published in different forms, but of course there's a need to publish much more, also to communicate our work to, I mean, beyond the network of academics. I mean, later this spring, in June, here in Krakow, we're going to have a conference on science communication, how to communicate science to, not to the outside world, but to our world, but beyond the boundaries of the academia. How to communicate it. And of course, this is, as the COVID demonstrated, there's a great need to develop trust, to communicate science to citizens, but I think it's equally important that social sciences communicates its reflection, its achievements to citizens. In order to generate trust, in order to generate legitimacy, in order to make people involved. So I can imagine that there will be an opportunity also for myself to discuss some of those ideas that we are going to talk about today and tomorrow, also on that occasion, to communicate research, to communicate our findings to the broader audience. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for preparing all these wonderful papers. I hope you also have a few minutes, those of you who are not in Krakow permanently, to walk around, to see some of those nice places in Krakow can show. The weather is good. You brought us a good weather. They've been pretty terrible for a few days, but now it's much better. So lots of optimism. Thank you, welcome, and have a very nice time.
Thank you very much. And I would like to invite Professor Bjørn Erik Fossum from University of Oslo, our principal investigator and the lead scientist of this project.
Hi. It's wonderful to see you again. I mean, last time we met as a collective was in Rome at the opening conference of the project. And that says something about researching during COVID. And I would first like to thank our Krakow University, our local team, and for hosting this conference and making it possible. I mean, we had it in the program, and I was very happy that we put it here because it is very appropriate to do it. Yeah, and I'm very happy for how it is coming along here, and because we have such a professional staff who are looking after us in an excellent way, and as you say, the weather is certainly helping. I say that because I've lived in the freezer in Oslo for a very long time now, so it's about time to thaw up. Doing research during a pandemic was a new experience for all of us. And it was very demanding at times, and we know that, especially for people with families. So it's very, so I mean, that in itself is a significant feat. And if you look at the achievements, what has come out, I think that is something to keep in mind and be very proud of in this, because it was not without cost. So, so that in itself is important. And then the other thing, as also Professor Mack was saying, what we started the project with certain themes. I agree that these themes were appropriate. I think how we put them together and so on is something that we will see and something we will have to reflect on also after the project has ended. But I think that the general gist of this is pointing in the right direction. But doing research in these times, it sort of adds something, because normally as social scientists we are saying, okay, one important method is process tracing. You can sit back at your leisure and follow a process, reconstruct it from its beginning to the end. That's not how we have conducted this project. It has been process chasing. And not only one process, but multiple processes. We started out thinking that the European Union was becoming much more diverse. Well, things have changed. I mean, of course, there's a whole tapestry of different types of dynamics going on. So just to do that and to be able to track that in itself is a significant challenge. And we always had an ongoing debate about, okay, how much of the original design of the original work should we retain and how much should we modify and change and adapt to the changing circumstances without losing perspective and sight of what we had aimed to do. So that in itself was an important challenge. And I'm very happy to say that these were very fruitful, very useful discussions. And I think we came to some agreement on how to do this as well. And that's one of the things that I have really appreciated with this project. We come from different places. We are reflecting the fact that we are diverse in theoretical orientations and so forth. But there has been a very good spirit, a very collaborative spirit, which should not in any way shy away from expressing differences and disagreements, but working together anyway. And I think that is a model for how Europe is, and it should be. So in that sense, that is in itself an interesting experience. I also think it's very important to try to bring together theory and empirics, to engage in both realms and try to have a cross-fertilization in an ongoing way. Because there are so many uncertain things, and we need to link up to basic core ideas, to theoretical frameworks and to the world of ideas, and also try to take it down and say, okay, what works and what doesn't. And then also following processes in rather detail and trying to go up and say, okay, what do these things tell us, these developments tell us about prevailing notions of the world and so on, different theoretical perspectives. To have that type of interaction is something that is fundamental to a project, especially at times of significant transformation, because it's not only the world that is changing empirically, but it is also the way we understand the world, different lenses we take on, we adapt to analyze, and this type of undertaking needs to be ongoing. And we were also fortunate in doing this project that we had two other sister projects. And I'm very happy that Bridget Laffen is here, and Matteo Bonomi will also come from the other project. So we were three projects pulling together. We had this sort of division of labor between us, and we also collaborated in DICE, which was an umbrella project on this. So we had a much larger community of scholars to engage with in an ongoing manner, again in a very collaborative spirit. That's something that is also deeply appreciated, and I hope we can continue doing that. So in a sense, yes, we're concluding the conference, but we're also launching further investigations and an ongoing march. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jon Erik. And I would like to invite Francisco de la Torre, Deputy Head of Democracy and European Values Unit of DG Research and Innovation from the European Commission, our representing commission, who is, by the way, or which is, by the way, our generous and understanding donor and financing institution for this project.
The guy with the envelope. The guy with the envelope who wants to contribute to the death by PowerPoint. In any case, the colors of the templates that are provided by our communication colleagues are so light and clear that it should be a painless death in this case. While we get it up and running, let me say first of all that I'm very happy, of course, to join Dean Leider and Professor Mach and Professor Fossum at this opening moment of the 2 days conference. Beyond the opening, if it doesn't sound exaggerated, I'm ecstatic about being able to stay with you for the 2 complete days. The first one focusing more ad intra on the different work strands of the project, and the second one on more ad extra thematic panels. You will not quote me here, and you will not say that these guys in Brussels do not have intellectual food back there, but I have to say it's very exciting to hear from you and to get to learn from the work you have been doing over these years. I want to do it, in fact, some, I will ask you maybe, Madalena, if you don't mind. Thank you very much. I would like to do a bit of advertising, if you allow me, of Horizon Europe, because you are one of the last projects, EU3D and the cluster of sister projects working on differentiated integration from Horizon 2020, but Horizon Europe is in full swing already, as you know. So for a moment, once upon a time, let's look back to what Horizon 2020 has been doing. Next one, please, Magdalena. It didn't move. Okay, no problem. There have been different clusters of projects, apart from yours, of course, on differentiated integration mentioned here at the end with the sister projects in DFU, EU IDEA, and the umbrella coordination and support action DICE that Professor Fossum was mentioning already. There have been projects on rule of law, like Reconnect, coordinated by the UK Leuven. Projects still ongoing on a cluster of projects on trust and the complex interlink between trust and governance and science. Some of them also closing almost as yours now during 2023. Next one, please. Projects also, sorry, Madalena, if you could move to the next one. Projects on populism, like Brace, Pop Rebel, Demos, a series of them. And next one also, funded actions also on disinformation, be it on the program parts, next one already, thank you, connected to the COVID pandemic that was already mentioned, or projects on the mediatization of the Europeanization discourse. These have still some more time to finalize. And of course, also from the bottom up, I don't forget that this is the programmed part of Horizon 2020. In the bottom up sections, like in the ERC, there are, of course, different actions ongoing on disinformation and on other angles on democracy. And the last slide is still on Horizon 2020, probably one of the very latest clusters on deliberative democracy, which will be coming now, very much in connection or in anticipation, if you want, with the work that the Commission launched, also in spite of the pandemic, with the Conference on the Future of Europe, and that, as you know, is now being continued and being onboarded on the policy making of the institutions through the citizen panels that are already on the go. But looking now to the present and to Horizon Europe, and we can move a couple of them now. What is there? What is in Horizon Europe for democracy? There is first an intervention area, or area of intervention, using the terminology that is established in the legal basis in the specific program implementing Horizon Europe, which is a council decision, as you may know, and in that legal document, there was an area of intervention specifically identified for democracy and governance, which is for the first time this happens. There was already, we have just seen in Horizon 2020, funds for research on close thematic areas, but it's the first time that in the legal basis we have this. And this appears in Cluster 2 together with other 2 intervention areas, culture and social and economic transformations. Next one. Where do we appear in this big beast? You can press another button so that the image comes. This big beast that is the framework program. We are in cluster, one of the 2 clusters. We can press still another button and 2 more. cluster culture, creativity and inclusive society in Pillar 2. It is not the only part of the program where there is funds for research on democracy. Of course, I mentioned before the bottom-up section in Pillar 1, excellent science, mostly the European Research Council, but also Marie Curie, in particular the training networks, which are a very useful instrument for mobilizing the community of research on democracy. And I even would add research infrastructure. I was having a talk with Professor Lefang during the first coffee on the need to interconnect better the collaborative research projects like yours with the research infrastructures, in the sense of making sure that the data sets that are produced through the years of work these projects have can be maintained and reused later on by other researchers. No? Probably not as big as the usually we know research infrastructures, but other type of solutions should be identified. And even under the European Innovation Council, which is a sort of original beast, there are some actions, of course, closer to the market and mostly connected to the fight against disinformation in terms of applications, tools in that for that endeavor. We can move to the next one. Voila, in our area of intervention on democracy and governance, the main challenges identified for the programming are, of course, I'm not discovering the sun here, the increased fragility of democracies identified over the last years, and the decreasing levels of trust in political institutions, coupled with the growing number of countries moving into authoritarianism and the decreasing levels of quality of democracies as shown by the different reports and indicators internationally established and run on a yearly basis. The historic level of stress, multilateral global governance order brought, if you want, to a summum now with the ongoing war in European soil already for more than a year. In that context, and we can go to the next one, what the programmed actions of Horizon Europe in the area of intervention of democracy and governance aim to do, try to do, is to, on both sides, try to be reactive and proactive. Reactive in the sense of trying to facilitate evidence-based responses to those challenges. And on the proactive side, trying to look also to means, tools, mechanisms to increase the resilience of democracies from within. So not only the external threats to which we need to react, but also how to tap on the capacities of citizenship, of civil society, of our own democracies to build their resilience. The expected impact, we can move to the next one, is identified in a document that frames the yearly work of 21-24. There have been 2 work programs, 21-22, 22-24, and there is a strategic planning mentioned here on the left, which is the one guiding the programming action. The expected impact that you have it there, I will not mention. This is a bit the main pieces of the programming of Horizon Europe, together with the strategic plan, the legal basis in itself, where we have this intervention area mentioned, the synergies with other funding programs of the EU that we try to increase as much as possible. Not an easy task, I have to admit. And of course, we try to look into the societal, policy, scientific developments, mentioned there at the end, but not in an order of importance, Horizon 20 projects to start with. I mean, research outcomes should, of course, frame and feed into the programming activities of Horizon Europe. We can go to the next one, Magdalena, which, if I'm not wrong, should be a bit of the policy context, but we can skip it. I'm not saying nothing new here. One of the 6 political guidelines of the current Commission, which has entered in its final year of work, as you know, has been the new push for European democracy. And under this strand, next one, there have been a series of initiatives. The last one coming in a couple of weeks, on the 7th of June, if I remember well, the adoption of the Defense of Democracy package, certainly looking, the name already says it all, more to the external threats we are confronted with, but we started with the European Democracy Action Plan already at the end of 2020, and another series of initiatives. I will not take time on those right now. Complex slide coming now, for which you will need to press several times the button, Magdalena, sorry for that, explaining for those having curiosity how and we went too much, maybe if you can, yeah. how the cluster works, in fact. There are three co-chairing services in the Commission. It is us, Research and Innovation, Employment, and Education and Culture, who are in charge of the actual adoption of the work programs. But of course, this is not done in isolation. We have other EU services with whom we try to interact in order to get the input on what is needed from their side in terms of policy initiatives, where research could be useful for their different endeavors. And of course, we try then to ensure the uptake of results later on. We have the program committee, which means member states, which interact with the co-chairing services when the draft programs are, work programs are there. They provide input, they provide comments. There is a sort of, this is the comitology procedure applied to research and innovation in this case. Of course, interaction with the research organizations, the umbrella organizations, universities, civil society, citizens through public consultations, position papers, and then sort of more internal, but not less important, the interaction with the executive agency, REA. You know that implementation, you know well, because you are the ones in receipt of the grants. The interaction, the management of the daily life of the project is done by the colleagues of the research executive agency, who also interact with a network of national contact points, who are there to disseminate and to act as how to say, points of information and guidance for potential applicants and ongoing beneficiaries, and of course, stakeholders and potential applicants who interact with all these bodies. And then an overview, and I'm reaching the end, an overview of the what 21 and 22, 23 and 24 has been already funding. We can move on, Marlena, to the next one, in Horizon Europe. There have been 2 calls with the first work program for a total of something like 125 million, 47 projects, if I remember well, already ongoing, most of them. And in 23-24, 170 million million euros for 20 topics overall. If I recall well, 9 in 2023 and 11 in 2024. And next one, please. These are the 2 calls. Maybe we can skip this one and the next one, because I have a slide with the overall view of all the thematic angles we have tried to cover in the 2 work programs. Maybe here I stop for a moment. This is through an amendment to the work program 21-22. We introduce a call for a coordination and support action, which is now under finalization, under contractualization with the colleagues in REA, pompously called Network for Innovative Solutions for the Future of Democracy. The idea being to bring democracy practitioners, researchers in the field of democracy, civic deliberation and participation together for a period of 3-4 years. Next one, and next one directly. We can skip this one. This is another, yeah, we skip it, because I have here an overview of the 21-24. Voila. Try to couple them in sort of big bunches of thematic areas in terms of responses to threats and challenges, being those extremism, disinformation and FIMI, foreign information manipulation and interference. You may know that there have been 2 specific topics in the Work Program 23, right now under evaluation, which are very much in connection, by the way, with the Defense of Democracy package coming now in June. This is the fun experience that we have working in this area of the Commission, is that the timeline of the policy initiatives and the research programming not always match. Sometimes by serendipity or coincidence or whatever, we end up having voila, those happy moments of matching. Corruption, some of them also on climate emergency, 23-24, and a quite original one on the social contract on 2023. Then, of course, some of them on digital and media. There is a specific cluster on digital and in Horizon Europe, cluster 4, where there are more actions specifically on artificial intelligence in the fight against disinformation, but these are more of course, cluster 2 is focused toward the social science and humanities community out there, and we try to keep that in mind. But of course, digital is present. We have got a topic on politics and the impact of online social networks and new media, which are 3 very interesting projects that are kicking off over these months. On global governance, mostly on 21 and 22, but a specific one added in 23 in connection to the impact of the invasion of Ukraine on the political perspectives for the neighborhood. On the area, more or less, though not specifically on differentiation, but connected to the area of your cluster of projects or sister projects, topics on the future of liberal democracy and representative democracy in flags in 22, the networks that I was mentioning, and then there is a topic more on foresight exercise in 2024 on future scenarios. And then sort of totum revolutum in the last one, reflected topics where we have inequalities, individuals and identities, with education for democracy, emotional politics, public sector, a quite also peculiar one on CSS, computational social sciences, which is coming in 2024, and of course on democratic participation, civic participation, a bit in the pace, in the same spirit of the cluster I mentioned of Horizon 2020 on participatory democracy. This is the overview of what 21-24 has been able to put on the table until now. Of course, and we can move to the next one. The idea, I mean, what Horizon Europe can do, let's be honest, is a little tiny part of the efforts on research that the member states are doing. Is a big program, is a big beast, as I said, and I'm very happy that there is this amount of money available for research on democracy and governance. But voilà, it's what it is. A nice work with the very valuable component of the collaborative dimension that Jan-Erik was referring to in his intervention, bringing together in truly European integration spirit colleagues from different countries and different areas, interdisciplinarity, of course. But it's a small amount, and the efforts out there are also amazing. So we cannot pretend to be the promoters of research on democracy, and we don't pretend to be. But of course, the main or the interest that as funders, European Commission, will have is, of course, on the outcome of your work in Horizon 2020 and the work of other consortia in Horizon Europe. And we aim at disseminating it later on as much as possible and bringing it to the colleagues in other policy services in the Commission so that whatever is there interesting and valuable for the policy-making task can be uptaken. In this context, we have these dissemination activities that we aim to promote. Next one, we try also to organize as much as possible collaborative and cluster events, bringing together representatives from the different projects and policymakers, colleagues from other Commission services in Brussels directly. I think that's the last slide, the one coming now. And I'm gonna stop there, not without congratulating you. We're still 2 months ahead before the official finalization of the project, but congratulating on the work that has been done until now under quite difficult circumstances for all of you. All the projects that started in 19 have endured quite some time in terms of overcoming the physical distance and separation over a long period. I got to see some of your faces during the advantage in some of the multiple webinars that were organized over time, and that helped you to stay also in touch. Thanks a lot for the hard work, and keep it up in whatever other endeavors you will be taking. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opening session. We don't have question session here unless there is something urgent to ask the presenters. If not, I have one technical information. EduRoam should work for those of you who are using it. If not, the reception desk provides the Wi-Fi user and passwords on little pieces of paper. So if anybody has issues with connecting to the EduRoam, please contact reception desk and pick up the passwords. And we have now 15 minutes break, so please join us for coffee and join us here in the room at 10:15. Thank you very much, and see you soon here.
What I will say is